now listening to On Air with Lewis Hunter.
Hi there, welcome back to On Air with Lewis Hunter, where we go into the ins and outs of celebs, professionals, and behind the scenes workers of your favorite movies and films. Join me as we go into the lives and find out what it's like to be one of them. Today, I'm joined by Stevie Shanks. How you doing?
Oh, very well, thank you, Lewis. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks for coming on. Now, for people who don't know who you are or what you do, could you give them a brief idea of what you do?
That's hard. Well, crazy kind of sums a lot of it up because I play drums, I lift rocks, and I drink beer. You know, so that kind of sums up the crazy thing. So it does. No, I've played drums most of my life, Lewis. I've been playing since I was probably a teenager. I'm damn near 60 now, so it's been a long time in the drums. Played the last 30 years with Flash Harry.
Yeah.
And getting the stone lifting and weightlifting a wee bit late in life, following kind of my dad's footsteps. And I've had a fair bit of success in that with some world records and some exciting stuff with kind of spreading the word on stone lifting, bringing back historic strength. So, yeah, I'm never looking for something to do.
You're always busy.
Yeah, I always keep busy, you know.
Yeah. Now, how did you get into that stone lifting business? Like, how did you think? Obviously, you said your dad was a part of it, but what was that sort of mindset that you thought, I'm going to do that? Because it's not a industry or it's not a hobby that most people think they would like to do.
It's not what you would call mainstream, definitely not. No, you know, the story goes back until when I was about 7 or 8 years of age. I probably just turned 8. My father was a weightlifter.
Okay.
He had a British record and a couple of Northern Ireland records in powerlifting. And there was a newspaper article kind of arrived at the house through one of the neighbours about these stones in Scotland. And they said that told you the whole legend about these stones have been around since the mid 1800s. There was a legendary Scottish Highland Games athlete called Donald Dinny, who is alleged to have lifted these boulders and to have carried them across the bridge. And nobody in 100 years had even lifted them, let alone carried them. You know, there was the first guy to actually lift them was in 1963, and that was the year I was born. That was a guy called Dave Prowse, who most people probably know as Darth Vader. Yeah. You know, he was a big, strong guy. He was British pilot and that. He lifted them, but he had to use hand straps. And this article focused on a guy who had lifted them, but he had used hand straps. So one week the article was about this guy lifting the stones, and next week it actually said foul lift because it focused on the guy wearing the straps, which actually, you know, makes lifting big weights a lot easier because you don't have to hold on to them basically. Yeah. So Dad at the time, he was lifting in and around sort of 440 pounds, 200 kilos with one hand, which was his record. And one of the bigger of the two stones, which combined weigh about 332 kilos, 734 pounds in old money. Dad reckoned, you know, I think I might be able to do that because that's kind of, you're lifting from a higher height. Yeah. It's less than I've done with one hand. Yeah. So he kind of found out more about it to the local police, got drawings, one thing and another, and then eventually he went over in 72, lifted them, which was the first time that had been done with bare hands. And then he went back the following year and carried them across the bridge, which is about 17 feet. And that was the ultimate sort of challenge that nobody thought was possible. Yeah. So that was when I was 8, you know, so it's something I've been very proud of all my life that my dad did this when I was turning 50. So fast forward 42 years.
Quite a bit, yeah.
I was, just a bit of time till I had elapsed in this, but it's just something. I mean, I was always a musician. My dad was always a strong man. But just for my 50th birthday, I thought, well, it'd be nice just to get myself in a bit better shape, you know, grow my arms, grow my chest, you know, just for on stage, you know, just look a bit better. I know you take your shirt off on stage, you know, you just want to, you know.
Yeah, you want to show off,
better.
yeah.
You know, I'm a show off. I'm a musician. I can't help it. Yeah. But anyway, that started well. I had a trainer called Vindy Johnson. He was Mr. Northern Ireland, so he's very good, and he trained me in the bodybuilding, you know, and things were going well. But I noticed that my strength was actually rising quite quickly. I entered a weightlifting competition. It was the Northern Ireland Powerlifting Federation, and it was a deadlift competition, and I won it in the Masters division, and I set a new Northern Ireland record. So I kind of thought, this is cool. So I kind of focused then slightly more on the strength, and as things progressed, I said to my dad, Dad, I would love to have a go at these Denny stones, you know. And so it kind of evolved from that. My dad had given all his stuff away, and his training rings, etc. So I got those all back from a fella in Scotland. And we worked for about a year on it, and eventually I went over and I lifted stones myself. So my dad and I actually even at the moment are still the only father and son to successfully lift these things with bare hands.
That's a good achievement.
I don't think I'll bother carrying them because I'm nearly 60 now, so something like that would probably put me in a box, you know. But it's nice. It's nice to share that with my dad, and it's been a great journey. And I've kind of started like a movement now, and kind of revitalizing stone lifting because it's such a historic, ancient form of strength. Before you had gymnasiums and weightlifting bars and stuff, people just lifted stones, and it's fascinating. The history is
Yeah.
fascinating. It's really catching on, and it's good. It's great to be involved in it.
Yeah. Now I've met David Prowse before, and I never would have assumed he would have done something like that.
Yeah,
It's quite.
sadly he passed away last year.
Yeah, I seen that. But he was a nice man when I met him, like, but I would never have expected him to have been somebody that would have been lifting stones and rocks. Like that would just
Yeah,
not.
well, I mean, slightly before your time, he also played a character called the Green Cross Code Man. It was
Right.
it was the road safety manual. We had the road safety stuff at school.
Yeah.
Well, there was an advert on ITV, and it was the Green Cross Code Man, and he would have stopped somebody who was going to cross the road in the wrong way, and he'd have stopped them and give him a wee lesson. And that was Dave Price. He was an absolute gentleman. My
Yeah.
dad and I met him once, and kind of told Dave who my dad was, and he was very interested to hear about Dad's story. And he gave him the rock star
Mhm.
treatment. He really did. It was lovely. Really nice
That's
experience.
it's a very interesting story. Now, what exactly was your world record given to you for in that?
Right, my world records are actually it's hard to sort of say that there's such thing as a world record in stone lifting because it's really a personal challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a stone that lies in a field, and for thousands of years, men have sort of children have become men by going into the field and lifting the stone, and then the village goes, right, that's you in manhood now,
Yeah.
And obviously, I mean, that's a very old concept because in the age we live in now, it's not just manhood anymore. I mean, it's because ladies are heavily involved in this, so it's just a people challenge now. But
Okay.
people are always wanting to do records, and the Guinness Book of Records have got to hear about this. And we've created my friend Brett Nicol. He's put together a set of stones that are slightly lighter, but they're more manageable. So we use those for competition, because those things that we do in Scotland are so heavy. If you pick them up, you're lucky. So it's not going to be much of a spectacle to walk with them. So we've created those a bit lighter, but Giant Slide, the world's strongest man, they've adopted them now. There's a Guinness Book of World Records record for those. And now some of the world's top strongmen who've always been interested in it are now starting to get involved, and they're starting to pick the stones up and kind of walk with them, for a distance without setting them down. And there's a record has kind of taken hold in that as well. Lawrence Chalet, you've probably seen on World's Strongest Man, currently holds it.
Yeah.
So it's really catching on, and there's all sorts of sort of stone lifting records coming up. But more of my records are just in weightlifting, things like deadlifts and one arm deadlifts and stuff like that. I think I've 36.
That's a fair few. Like,
I don't sit and count my records every night.
just have them lying across your bed.
Yeah, most of them are masters records, for guys in their 50s. But it's nice still. I mean, a world record's a world record. I'll take it.
Exactly. I would happily have one any day. Now,
Yeah.
you mentioned about being a musician. How did you get into that? How did that start?
Well, let me rephrase that. I'm a drummer. I hang about with musicians. That's what they all say in it.
Yeah.
I've been ever since I was a kid. I mean, I used to watch guys on stage, and I just thought I would just love to do that. And it's people have said to me over the years, I wish I could play drums, or I wish I could play guitar, or I wish I could sing. And I've always said the only person stopping you is yourself.
Yeah.
Because you have to kind of make that first move. You've got to go out and buy a pair of drumsticks, buy a guitar. Actually make the move, and then go through those horrible first few months and years where you're actually learning even just to make it not sound bad.
Yeah.
So with the drums, it was love at first sight. I went to school with a guy called Frank Lyons, who's now MBE, and he's Professor Frank Lyons. He's done really well for himself. But he's a guitar player in school, so we grew up together, and he played the guitar. I always thought it was really cool. And when I was about 17 or 18, I ran into him. I was out on my motorcycle, and he said the band's rehearsing, so I come up to see them, and that was me, absolutely hooked. So I used to set their gear up for them, and then I'd have a wee sneaky, because I used to watch the drummer, and I thought I could do that. And I used to set Brian's kit up, and before the guys arrived, I would have a wee sneaky go on his drums and kind of copy all the things I've seen him do,
Yeah.
And eventually, with less than a year later, I bought my own kit, and within a week I was in a band, and I think I've been in a band pretty much ever since. It's just one of those things. I can't not do it. As much as I complain about it sometimes. Traveling 300 miles to a gig, it's an absolute, it's a calling. I think much like the medical profession or nursing profession.
Yeah.
I think music's a calling, and it's something that's in your blood. There's no getting it out.
Exactly. Now, you at one point I don't know if it's still, but you had played with Alicia Carr, the Pink Tribute, and the Pink Tribute
I
show.
did.
How did you
I
get
did.
into that?
That was right. It kind of goes back to that. I mean, there's a bit of a joke that they all make, but they all say, "Oh, the drummers aren't musicians; they just hang about musicians." So I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this musician thing a go, and see how it, see what all the fuss is about. So I used to keep, instead of keeping ornaments in the house, I always would have kept musical instruments. So I had a guitar hanging on the wall. It was a Brian May guitar actually, the Red Special, and I'd be sitting watching TV, and it was hanging on the wall. And I was kind of, you know what, I'm going to learn how to play this. So I got it down, and because it's an electric guitar, it didn't sound very nice. So I sold it and bought myself a nice acoustic guitar, and it just worked away and worked away at it. And one of the things that I kind of had a wee bit of a head start on after playing drums for 100 years is the right hand, the rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
I bought myself a soft plectrum, or actually a hard plectrum initially, and I couldn't get any rhythm out of it. But once I bought a soft pick and I was able to get through the strings a bit better, I was able to pick up the rhythms really easily. So then it was kind of like learning the chords and all the theory behind it and stuff. So practiced really hard, and I kind of fell in with Alicia. There was one night, I think I'd hired a PA system to her or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but I was chatting away to her and her husband. We became really good friends quite quickly, and I said, I play a wee bit of guitar. And she did an acoustic sort of set, but she was working the tracks, but in the middle she had done things like Dear Mr. President and one thing and another.
Yeah.
I said, you know what, why don't we have a wee jam together down the house, and I play a bit of guitar. So we did, and we kind of evolved like a wee acoustic set for the middle of her show, which I did with her for any gigs I could make for about a couple of years, I suppose, maybe a year and a half. And then while we were doing, I said, look, why don't we just go the whole hog? Let's just get a band and do the whole show, because Pink was obviously famous for, for all the fire breathing and coming in on the zip line and all that sort of stuff. So we booked the first show. It was back in 2014, Theatre at the Mill, and we did the whole bit. We got guys in to put all the hooks and sort of hanger from this. She actually came in off the balcony behind the stage on a big zip line. And then we had her swinging across the stage. We had her on hoops with girls breathing fire, dancers, the whole bit. It was really good fun.
Really sounds it.
I played drums on that show. I mean, it was kind of my show, so I kind of stage managed the whole thing as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I played the wee acoustic set in the middle with her. So it was I really enjoyed it. And my now wife came to the show. that's kind of how I met her. I mean, I've known her for 100 years, but we kind of got together shortly after that show. So. All the work and effort that we put into it. I think we only got to do 2 shows in it, but because there's so many people had so many commitments with other bands, it was almost impossible to get us even the rehearsal, let alone gig. But the good side is I got to meet Heather. We got together and we ended up getting married. So every story is a wee happy ending in it somewhere.
Exactly. Maybe it was just meant to happen.
Absolutely was, but it was a great show. I really enjoyed the Pink show because our music's, I'm a rocker at heart, with the Flash Harry thing and ever.
Yeah.
But the Pink stuff where it may seem like she's a pop singer, she's not, far from it. It's really good rock material, and the band that we got together were all rockers as well. We all love playing it. It was really good fun.
Now, how did you go from that to joining and becoming one with Flash Harry?
Well, the Flash Harry thing goes back 30 years. I mean, I was actually already in Flash Harry when all that happened.
All right.
I joined Flash Harry in 1992.
Okay.
I think the band had maybe done 1 or 2 local shows down in Craigavon.
Yeah. And
my kid brother is a lighting engineer, his lighting company, and he'd done a couple of shows for them. And they were kind of just sort of getting the lineup sorted out and getting the show sorted out. And Keith said, those guys are looking for a drummer. I put my name for it. I just literally left. There was a band called Ashanti, was my band when I was a kid. That was my first band that I started out with. And I had sort of left that and I was out doing a few other bits and pieces. But when I heard about this, Keith, put me in touch with it because I'm a Queen fan, have been my whole life, And I thought, what a great gig this would be. So I met the guys, did a wee kind of an audition thing with them, and that was it. I haven't looked back. That was 30 years ago in March this year. So it's been a hell of it's absolutely flown in, but I mean, what a ride we've had. We've played some amazing places, and our fan base over here in Northern Ireland particularly, and in the south and the whole of Ireland has been amazing because they've been very loyal to us, for all those years, and you look back on it and you think, how can we been at this 30 years?
Yeah, it just flies by.
Enjoy it. It flies when the time flies when you're having fun, as they say, and we most definitely have had fun. We're like a big family more than a band now,
Yeah. Now, your first gig was at the Ulster Hall, yeah?
That was my first big show with the guys. That was Freddie Mercury died on the 24th of November 1991. And whenever I joined the band, I'd sort of, because I kind of knew everybody in Belfast in the music scene at the time, because we'd been involved in the Rosetta and all that sort of stuff, and the guys had sort of mentioned, we'd love to do the Ulster Hall or something. I said, why don't we?
Yeah.
Because all you have to do is phone a place and book it, when the rest is obviously there's finance involved and all that sort of stuff. But I said, well, look, I know all the guys. Let's go do it. So we did, and so that was our first major show. We did that on the first anniversary of Freddie's death, so it was 24th of November '92.
Yeah.
And that was our first big Belfast show. The very first show that Flash ever done, I think, was March '92. So that's why it's the 30th anniversary in March.
Mhm.
But this is our 30th anniversary year. So, we're just going to spend a year celebrating 30 years.
Yeah, and what better way to do that?
5 years too. Why not? An excuse for a celebration. Yes,
Exactly. Yeah, and what better way to do that than to go back to the Ulster Hall where it first started your gig?
Yeah. What a venue. I mean, when I was a wee boy, one of my favourite bands when I was a kid was Horselips.
Mhm.
And I remember going to all the Horselips gigs in the Ulster Hall, when I was a kid, and there was just something magical about the place. I seen AC/DC there with Bon Scott.
Yeah.
I seen some incredible acts over there So to actually get to share that stage, I mean, even now, I'm 40 years into my music career, and it's still a big deal
Mhm.
to actually get to play on the Ulster Hall stage. I don't think I'll ever lose that feeling,
Yeah.
of just loving playing there.
Yeah, now that's March 16th. If you want to get your tickets it's on the Waterfront's website.
Yes, we were originally supposed to play in the Ulster Hall. I think it was the 28th or 29th of December. And obviously with all the COVID stuff, with the hospitality and all that, we had to postpone it. So we were looking through the diary, and we knew that the middle of March was coming up. And I thought, what, this is a perfect opportunity and a perfect setting, for just to be able to nail that big 30, that big 30 for us. So 16th of March, it's a Wednesday night, it's a school night, but the good news is the next day is a public holiday because it's St. Paddy's. So come along, have a good night, spend some Paddy's, sleep in your hangover off. Enjoy the show.
What a better way to do it. Now, whenever you were in the radio station Belfast 89 last Sunday,
Yes.
Nigel thought he would tell me for this podcast that you like to ski.
I do indeed, yes, I do.
Now, how did you get into that?
I blame George Jones for that. Anybody doesn't know George Jones, I mean, he's radio presenter here for many, many years, played in a band called Club Sounder, big successful at the end of the show band era.
Mhm.
So I was actually I was a bit of a golfer, and I was out doing a charity. It was one of those sort of Joe Busy charity golf things, and I was playing with George Jones and Trevor Kelly. And the guys were telling me about this ski trip they did every year. I didn't ski, and they invited me out. I think this was around 2004, 2005, something like that. And I said, look, I would love to. And it's great because, they said it's a free trip. You get your flights paid for you, everything's, your hotel, and you do 4 shows, and that's it for the fortnight. And I thought, what, if I was to fall, hurt my leg, I wouldn't be able to play my drums, and Flash Harry couldn't gig, and all of those kind of things crept in my head. So I actually turned it down. And the following year, they said, Stevie, come on, do the gig. And I went, right, okay. So, so I said, I'll give it a go. And you know what? It was absolutely the best holiday I'd ever had.
Yeah.
It was because, unlike at the holiday in the summer, it's all about sort of chilling by the pool and reading a book and having a few beers around the pool. This was a full on, you get up first thing in the morning, you're up the mountain, you're skiing. The après ski is very good fun.
Yeah.
And the gigs were amazing. I really enjoyed the gigs out there, and playing with George and the guys, obviously the different generation of me, but we all love the same music.
Mhm.
So that's about 16 years ago that I did that, and we've been out every year now. We've missed the last 2 years because of COVID. We were actually in Austria in 2020. We had the first week of 2 weeks done, and things were all closing down rapidly. So we had to actually sort of gather up our stuff and run to get out of the country in time.
Yeah.
So I had, but I mean, skiing's amazing. Now it's an amazing trip, and playing with George and the guys, it's so different than Flash, but equally as fun, and the people out there are lovely. They make you very welcome, and that's like my second music family. It's really, really good.
Now, you also like to own your Harley Davidson, and you're sort of a motorcycling enthusiast. Would I be right in saying that?
Well, do you know what? Drums, skiing, all that sort of stuff, lifting rocks, riding motorcycles, it all fits in very well. It does. I've been riding motorcycles since I was 16, so it's 42, 43 years now riding motorcycles.
Yeah.
And I have a Harley Davidson now. I call her Fifi. And the reason I call it, she's a giant big thing, and Fifi's kind of the opposite to what she is.
Mhm.
I think I've had that motorcycle about 16 or 17 years. Harley Davidson's I wasn't fussed on because I thought it was just a name and you were paying big money for a name. That there wasn't really much different in the bikes we would have been riding at home here. But I went out to Florida, and while I was there, I thought, you know what, I'll give a bit like the old musician thing. I thought I'll give this a go.
Yeah.
And I took one out for the day, rode up to Daytona. It was one of the best days on a motorcycle I'd ever had. I think within 6 months of coming home, I bought Fifi, and my goodness, I would never sell her. You know, it's just they're just amazing things to ride. You know, because they're quite temperamental. I'm not saying they're like women. I'm, I'm too wise to say that, but I mean,
There'll be some people in the comments.
Some days, you know, when you're rider, she's very happy and, you know, she's up and she just wants to go all day. And other days she's grumpy and she just doesn't want to start, or she doesn't want to go. You know, it just depends on the weather and
Sounds like a
and
song.
what mood she's in. You know, so you take your own conclusions out of that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I love what I'll ride motorcycles till the day I die. I'll probably play drums till the day I die. Lifting big heavy rocks at 3,500 kilos. Probably not do that until I die. I think I maybe need to think about backing off that soon. I think.
Yeah, that could probably bring you to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, is there anything before we wrap up here you'd like to advertise or promote, or is there anything at all?
Oh, no, listen, I'm always happy to talk about Flash Harry because it's something that I enjoy so much. And, you know, 30 years on the road now, I don't think we're showing any signs of slowing up. You know, so if anybody, I don't think I would say, look, you need to get in at the Ulster Hall because it's going to be your last chance to see us.
Yeah.
I think we were in for a few years yet. So just keep an eye on our Facebook page. We're always, you know, of course, we're always advertising what we do, you know, but it's an absolute labour of love. I think we've got a couple of gigs coming up in the jail, which I think are sold out. That's in early March, the 5th and the 12th. But we've got Glam Slam. Now, Glam Slam have been around actually longer than us, you know, with Johnny Hero and the guys. And they're going to open up for us to help us celebrate at the jail on the 5th of March. So I'm looking forward to seeing the guys because they actually opened the show for us on the 24th of November, 92. So it's full circle, you know.
Properly, yeah.
And it's great to have the guys kind of sharing that big landmark with us. No, it's really, really, really cool. Well, thank you very much for having me on the show, Lewis. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
And thank you for coming on. Now, next week, we will actually be joined by Chris Carr. So if you would like to hear about the master behind it all, make sure to tune in next Saturday. Thank you for all listening, and we'll see you next week.